students. Hope you all are fine. Today we are just going to complete the chapter 11, that is in your book it is named as the Great Uprising of 1857. The part left, that is the impact or the changes that had taken place after 1857. But before going into that, it will be helpful for you if I once sum it up the previous one. So the chapter basically dealt with the causes of the revolution or the uprising. The major causes are the political causes, economic causes, social-religious causes, military causes, and the immediate causes. Inside the political causes, we have already studied about how doctrine of lapse had played a major role to create a dissatisfaction against the British rule, to create an agitation, an anguishment against the British rule, since the doctrine of lapse had uprooted, had cancelled any kind of chances of the adopted sons to become the king in future after the death of their parents. On the other hand, there were some cases of the excuse of ill administrations, which was not correct every point of time. For example, we had studied how Awadh had been encroached, had been captured by the British in excuse of ill administration. Besides that, there were extreme disrespect towards the Mughal ruler, who was old, very old, and the Mughal Empire had synchronized into a very small, but still he had some respect in the eyes of the people of India. And not only that, Lord Canning had told that the ruler after Bahadur Shah Zafar will not be able to carry forward the title of Mughal ruler. So all this dissatisfaction and anguishment had launched the uprising of 1857 from the political perspective. If we come to the economic basis, we can see the extreme high rates of revenue. There were several types of revenue which had been introduced at that point of time in several parts of India. For example, permanent settlement, Raithwada settlement in southern part of India, permanent settlement or zamindari settlement in Bengal province, and the Malwari settlement in the western part of India. Whatever the cases were, whatever the experiments were, in all the cases the one single common thing was the extreme high rates of revenue. It was extremely tough, extremely problematic for the peasants to spend their daily life after giving such huge amount of revenue to the British government. In the other case, we can say that this deindustrialization had played a key role in the uprising of the 1857, since India was a very good producer of muslins and other handicraft things. But as the Industrial Revolution had taken place in England, rather in Britain, and Britain was trying to forcefully sell his product in India, that's why they imposed a huge amount of taxes on our indigenous product. Thus, in competition with the tax-free product, the Indian high-taxed commodities could not fight for long, could not compete for long, and thus the industries declined. Thousands of people who were attached with these professions had lost their job, and the industries had declined. So from this perspective also, the people who were attached with this profession along with the peasants all went against the British, or rather the mentality, the anguishment, the agitation was going very high. Besides that, the upgrowing unemployment was a serious threat for the British from the Indian unemployed group of people. Coming into the social-religious causes, here we can see how the threat of converting the Indian people into Christianity by the missionaries played a key role. Besides that, the social reform which were started by the British government, I must say the East India Company government was still not there. It was not accepted by the Indian traditional society well. They thought that the British was intentionally trying to hurt the sentiment of the Indian people. The introduction of railway and telegraph, the educated middle class was not getting their desired job, all these, the culmination of all these processes and the causes led to the uprising of the 1857 from the socio-religious perspective. The military causes were very prominent, like they were not paid properly, though they had to work very hard, just equal to the British officers. Their promotions were not there. They were very much ill-treated. Besides, the German Service Enlistment Act was there. According to the act, they had to go to any part of the world whenever the British will assign them. And according to the Indian customary belief, crossing the sea is kind of very heretical thing. So all these things later started raising a mentality, very bitter mentality against the British inside the British Army, where a huge number of Indian people were serving the British as a soldier. Coming into the last part, that is the immediate cause. Here we all know about the Enfield rifle incident, where the cartridges were greased by the pigs and the leather of the pigs and cow, which were very much cynical and for both Hindus and Muslims. The Hindus treated cow very much like a goddess, and using a pig, any kind of thing related to the pig to the Muslims are very much cynical. So both the religious segment of the society was furious by as soon as they came to know about this kind of thing which is taking place for days now when they came to know. So the protest, the revolt, the uprising started from the military or the Indian soldiers who were serving the British military, British army. There were some prominent centers like Meerut, which I have just told you, we have already studied it, that the military cantonment, the movement started, the uprising started from the military cantonment, though it was started in Barakpur, but it was a prominent movement. It took a shape of a movement from Meerut. Besides Meerut, there were Delhi, there were Kanpur, there were Jhansi, there was Lucknow, and the several other places. Now today, we will be discussing about the changes that had taken place after the 1857. We must say, we can say that it is an impact also. Till whatever the chapter we had studied, we are very much familiar with two words, that is East India Company and Governor General. Now East India Company was a private company who got the right to trade in India from British authority. Gradually they took the power of India and started ruling. But as soon as such a big movement took place, the British authority could not sit quietly. They thought it will be really risky to leave the power in the hands of such private authority. So they took all the power from East India Company to the Queen itself, or to the Crown itself. At that point of time, Queen Elizabeth was there. So it was obviously an important point and an important change, you can say. Another important thing which I have just told you, that the Governor General post, the highest authority in India of East India Company was Governor General. Since the East India Company is not existing anymore, Governor General also lost, the post of Governor General also lost its importance. In case of Governor General, another authority is now started taking the power, started working as a de facto authority in India, under the surveillance of Queen, and the post name is Viceroy. You can see in your book the points are there. You can mention the third one was the British armies. We have discussed in the military causes that the huge number of Indian army were there in the British army. Indian soldiers were there, were working in Indian army, the British army. But now the British authority became very much aware that since the movement had started from the military cantonment only, and then it had spread it up in various parts of India, various segments of the society had joined the movement when it was initiated. It was started by the military itself. The proportion of Indian Army to British Army had decreased. That means proportion of Indian Army had decreased in compare with the British Army. Number of British Army had been increased. All the high posts were now kept for the British authority, British soldiers, all the artilleries. The artilleries mean the guns, the firing cannons, and all these important things are being kept for the British soldiers only. The Indians were provided with only lathi and the swords and all. And the last part of your book, which is showing about the doctrine of lapse. We have already studied about doctrine of lapse in our political causes. That according to the doctrine of lapse, it was introduced by Lord Dalhousie, and according to this doctrine of lapse, the king who had not, who doesn't have their natural heir, that means sons, they will not be able to enjoy, that means the adopted son. The king who doesn't have their natural heir, they can adopt their sons. There is no problem. British authority is not restricting them from to adopt the son. But British authority is restricting from now, that means from Lord Dalhousie's regime, that this adopted son will not be able to become the king after the death of the existing king. From this point, from these rules, many a kingdom, many a state had lost their king. For example, we have studied about Nana Sahib, we have studied about Rani Lakshmi Bai, who fought in Jhansi, who was a queen, still he fought for his state. But after the 1857, British accepted that we will not interfere in the internal matters of the native states, whether they are having their adopted sons or not. We will not going to see. Doctrine of lapse will not be existing anymore. The adopted son can become the king. Understood? Again a quick recap. The first major change that had taken place, that is from the hands of East India Company, the power shifted to the Crown, that means the British authority itself, not to any, no more in the hands of the power, in the hands of British authority, which will be ruled by the Queen from the Britain itself. One representative of her in the name of Viceroy will be there in India, but he will be working under the complete surveillance of the Queen itself or herself. This is the second point, that the existence of Viceroy, Governor General will be no more. In place of the post of Governor General, a new post Viceroy will be there. The third one is the reorganization of the army. That means the number of Indian army will be decreased, whereas the number of British army will also be increased. Not only the Indian army will be decreased, the number of British army will also increase. All the important posts, the artilleries, will remain in the hands of British only, not to any Indian soldiers. And the last but not the least, from now on, British will not interfere into the native matters. For example, they have specially mentioned that the doctrine of lapse will not be existing anymore. The adopted son can become the king. Hope you have understood the chapter well, and this video will help you to clear any doubt if you have regarding this chapter. Stay safe, God bless you, always wear mask, even you are inside the home, talk to your parents with the peers in only English, converse in English only. It will help you not only to grow up your vocabulary but also to build a good future.